Hi, this ambassador briefing will be about the recent rise in shootings and the gun debate. First, what does the Lord say about weapons? We know that when Jesus is reigning, there won't be a need for any weapons at all. The question is about what does he say about weapons for now? In Romans 13:4, Paul says, "For he, that is, who is in authority in the government, is God's servant for your good. But if you do wrong, be afraid, for he does not bear the sword in vain. He is God's servant to execute his wrath on the wrongdoer." Clearly, our King is not against weapons for keeping peace and as a deterrent to evil and to wrong. But what about common citizens bearing arms? In Luke 22:36, Jesus said to his disciples, "But now, let him who has a purse take it, and likewise a bag, and let him who has no sword sell his mantle and buy one." Jesus advised the disciples to have a weapon as personal protection during the time of stress that was about to come upon them. So for this time, it's safe to say that the Lord isn't against our need for weapons. We live in a world that has order only because of God's hidden exercise of power. Needing weapons now is understandable. What isn't understandable is the easy access to powerful weapons. I think we can all agree that there needs to be some kind of reasonable control in terms of age, background checks, maybe even requiring adequate training. I think the Lord would recommend using some kind of sense in who is able to get guns. In some of the recent shootings, the ease of these unstable teens getting guns is really a black eye for gun control. Here we can support both sides of the debate to some degree. However, the present issue is deeper. Satan wants disunity and chaos in order to break down lawful order. If he can get political parties and people in general to fight, he can bring desperate thoughts to the groups on each side of the debate, and it'll create more conflict and fighting and fear. And most importantly, the inability for people to think straight and to work with one another toward a common goal. It should be obvious that the sudden increase in shootings has some connection to all of this disorder. The tragedies are the result of the enemy stirring up the bitter-hearted and creating, through this random and unexpected frequency and tragedy, what now looks like an urgent need for an immediate political showdown in gun control. Just like the situation that developed 2 years ago in the storm of the intense hatred toward President Trump and COVID and George Floyd and some other shootings, there is no comprehensive, politically driven human conspiracy. But we understand that there is a very wide and organized spiritual hierarchy that desires human beings to fight. In our fighting, it creates a hate and distrust that keeps us from seeing the Lord and calling on him. We're basically at the devil's mercy. As ambassadors, we can't let our emotions get swept into this. We're here to represent our Lord, his love, his truth, and his coming kingdom. If the whole world is being deceived by Satan, people are not fully in control. People are lost, and their sin blinds them. We have to be in the Lord's control and allow our hearts to express his compassion and his wisdom. In the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd, protests and violence poured into the streets, and people were emotionally swept into the rage and bitterness. As time went on, police began taking a knee with the protesters to show understanding and solidarity and to bleed off some of that rage. I think I may have seen the first occasion of this kind of peacemaking. An older white officer was being raged at by a very emotional and angry young black guy. It looked hopeless, but the officer never gave up. One moment it looked so wildly hopeless that you thought blows would be exchanged, and then it almost happened that they kneeled, and then it looked hopeless again, and finally they were both kneeling. It was amazing. I'll always be impressed by that officer. As ambassadors of our Lord, we need to be so overwhelmed by the love of God for us, so convinced of his deep love for the lost, and so secure in his sovereign presence in every moment, that we can allow his Spirit to clothe us with power, bringing the love and wisdom of Christ into the chaos we face in representing our Lord. We need to be able to do this for him and for the people around us. Maranatha.